We've all heard about broken promises, right? Shattered contracts. And usually the fix is just money. But what happens when money isn't enough? What if you want the actual thing you were promised? Can a court step in and force someone to follow through? Well, that is the powerful legal question we are diving into today.
I mean, it seems like a pretty simple question, doesn't it? You had a deal, the other person bailed, so why can't a judge just point a finger and say, hey, you, do it? The thing is, sometimes they can, but way more often they can't. And figuring out that why not is where it all gets really, really interesting.
So when we talk about a broken promise, the law's go-to solution is almost always financial. The person who broke the contract pays what's called damages to cover the other person's loss. But the law has this other, much more powerful tool in its toolbox. It's just used a lot less.
And that tool is called specific performance. You can think of it like a legal super remedy. It's saved for very specific situations, where a court doesn't order a payout, it orders a do-over.
So what is it? Here's the official definition. It's a court order that forces someone to do the exact thing they agreed to in the contract. We're not talking about getting a substitute or a cash equivalent. We're talking about a judge saying, you will sell that specific house, or you will hand over that one-of-a-kind painting. It's all about action, not cash.
So this really shows the two roads you can go down. Damages, the money substitute, that's the default path. The legal system pretty much assumes that in most cases, cash can make things right again. But specific performance, that's the exception to the rule. That's the law admitting that, you know what, sometimes money just can't fix it because some promises are just too unique to be replaced.
Okay, so if this remedy is so direct and powerful, why isn't it the standard? Why don't we see it used all the time? What are the hard lines that a court just will not cross? Let's get into the two biggest limitations.
The first major roadblock is what I like to call the money fix. You have to remember, the legal system tries to be practical. So the very first question a court is going to ask is, hey, can we just solve this whole thing with money?
And that brings us right to our first critical rule. If a judge looks at the situation and decides that a simple payment of damages would be a totally adequate solution, well, that's what's going to happen. Specific performance is immediately off the table. The law will always prefer the simpler, cleaner solution if it's fair.
Let me give you a quick example. Imagine a supplier fails to deliver 1,000 standard bricks you ordered. Can you take a cash settlement and just go buy identical bricks from someone else? Yeah, of course you can. So money is an adequate fix. But what if your contract was for the original Batmobile from the movie? That's one of a kind. It's irreplaceable. You can't just take some cash and buy another one. In that case, money is absolutely not an adequate fix. It all boils down to that one little word, uniqueness.
And there's another layer to this too, called undue hardship. See, even if the item is totally unique, a court has to weigh the fairness of it all. If forcing the sale would be completely devastating or oppressive to the person selling it, the court might still back off. They don't want to fix one problem by creating an even bigger injustice somewhere else.
All right, on to limitation number 2, and this one's a big one, personal services.
Now this is a fundamental principle of contract law. It's a really powerful statement. The law draws a very, very firm line in the sand right here. So yeah, you can sue for a ton of money if your star singer cancels their concert, but you can never get a court order that forces them to walk on that stage and sing against their will.
And these examples here just show you how broad this rule is. It applies to any contract that depends on a specific person's unique skill, their talent, or their judgment. I mean, just think about it for a second. Could a judge actually force an author to write the next great chapter of a book? Or command an architect to have a brilliant design idea? It's just not possible. The law says absolutely not.
So what's the reason behind this? Well, it really comes down to two things. First, it gets uncomfortably close to involuntary servitude, and the law will not force someone into labor. But there's also a really practical reason. How on earth would a court enforce it? How could a judge tell if a singer who's being forced to perform is really giving it their all, or if a chef who's been ordered to cook is actually putting care into the meal? The quality is just impossible to supervise, which makes the whole order fall apart.
Okay, let's zoom out and tie this all together. Why do these limitations on specific performance actually matter? Well, they tell us a whole lot about the delicate balancing act the law is constantly trying to perform.
And it really boils down to this. The whole money is adequate rule. That shows the law's practical side. It wants simple, efficient solutions. But the personal service rule, that shows the law's deep respect for individual freedom and the special nature of creative work.
And that is our crucial takeaway. Specific performance isn't the rule, it's the rare exception. It's held in reserve for those special cases where what was promised is so unique that no amount of money can replace it, and forcing it to happen is both practical and fair to everyone involved.
So the next time you hear about a contract dispute, think about this fundamental tension. Specific performance sits right at that fascinating crossroads between two huge ideas. The idea that promises should be sacred and the idea that human freedom must be protected. It's a conflict at the very heart of how we, as a society, enforce the deals we make with each other. Thanks for joining me.